Hi guys, this is podcast of GreenUp Brežice. We are Kasia and Stefan, and we are the volunteers here. Probably you've heard about us already. And we have decided to talk about climate change. And today's topic is water. So I will maybe start with some basic information about water. Water covers around 70% of our planet, but only 3% of the world's water is fresh water, and 2/3 of that is tucked away in frozen glaciers or otherwise unavailable for our use. We use around 1% of water that is on our planet. We may think that it will always be here with us, but actually, the reservoirs are not infinite. Around 1.1 billion people worldwide lack access to water, and a total of 2.7 billion find water scarce for at least 1 month of the year. Inadequate sanitation is also a problem for a lot of people. They are exposed to diseases such as cholera and typhoid fever and other waterborne illnesses. 2 million people, mostly children, die each year from diarrheal diseases alone. Rivers, lakes, and aquifers are drying up or becoming too polluted to use. More than half of the world's wetlands have disappeared. Agriculture consumes more water than any other source and wastes much of that through inefficiencies. Climate change is altering patterns of weather and water around the world, causing shortages and droughts in some areas and floods in others. At the current consumption rate, this situation will only get worse. By 2025, 2/3 of the world's population may face water shortages, which will have an impact on other parts of our lives. Due to geography, climate, engineering, regulation, and competition for resources, some regions seem relatively flush with fresh water, while others face drought and debilitating pollution. In much of the developing world, clean water is either hard to come by or a commodity that requires laborious work or significant currency to obtain. We all have the right to water. It is one of the fundamental human rights. It entitles everyone to have access to sufficient, safe, acceptable, physically accessible, and affordable water for personal and domestic use. But what all of these adjectives actually mean? Let's find out. So, first, the water should be sufficient. It means that it has to be continuous for personal and domestic uses. These uses ordinarily include drinking, personal sanitation, washing of clothes, food preparation, personal and household hygiene. Safe. It has to be free from microorganisms, chemical substances, and radiological hazards that constitute a threat to a person's health. Water also should be acceptable, should have an acceptable color, odor, and taste for each personal or domestic use. It should also be physically accessible, which means that we should have access to water within or near the household, educational institution, workplace, or health institution. Water in general should be close to us. And the last one, water should be affordable, which means it shouldn't cost too much. Everybody should have enough money to buy it. So, this is how it should look like, but we are still facing the problem of maintaining all of these rules for everybody. Right now, we are experiencing water crisis, which is caused by many factors. We will mention some of them. First, population growth. In the last 50 years, the human population has more than doubled. This rapid growth came with economic development and industrialization. There is more of us, we need more food, shelter, clothing, and we are using water at unsustainable levels. Second, Agriculture. Agriculture uses 70% of the world's accessible fresh water, but more than half of this is wasted due to leaky irrigation systems, inefficient application methods, as well as the cultivation of crops that are too thirsty for the environment in which they are grown. Because of that, the rivers, lakes, and underground aquifers dry. We also use a lot of pesticides and fertilizers, which produce water pollution. It means that even more water is not drinkable. Third, pollution. So I just mentioned the pollution from the farms, but it is worth to add that also some toxic substances from industrial processes are affecting our waters, and it may take time to build up the environment again. Fourth one, climate change. Because of the greenhouse effect and pumping more and more CO2 to the atmosphere, patterns of weather and water will change. That means more droughts, but also more floods. Glaciers will disappear in some places, so they will cut off the freshwater suppliers in the nearby communities. What are the impacts on the planet because of the water crisis then? 1. Disappearing wetlands. Almost half of them are already destroyed. They are important places because a lot of animal species like mammals, birds, or fish are living there. Wetlands also support the cultivation of rice, which is a staple in the diet of half the world's population. 2. Sanitation problem. Around 2 billion people lack access to improved sanitation. Today, 1 in 3 people don't have access to toilet, so they spend hours a day searching for a place to go. And more people have a mobile phone than a toilet. 3. Lack of drinkable water. A lot of people in developing countries are drinking either polluted water or spend a major part of the day on collecting it from the far places. It has an impact especially on women who are responsible for taking care of finding the water resources for the cooking, drinking, or sanitation. They often stay in the long lines waiting for fresh water and walk a few kilometers per day to save the family. The women around the world are spending on average 200 million hours a day for collecting water. This time could be used for improving their education and what is connected with that, higher economic status, and better living standards. It has also an impact on the economic aspect in the world, because the time people use for collecting water is worth around $260 billion. 4. Health problem. 3 billion people globally, which is 2 out of 5, don't have access to soap and water to wash their hands at home. Access to safe water directly helps the most vulnerable families around the world prepare and protect themselves from illness and disease. This is especially important these times when we are experiencing the pandemic of coronavirus. 1 million per year dies because of the illnesses from water sanitation and hygiene-related problems. 5. Animals distinction. Due to scarcity of water in rivers and lakes, a lot of animals are dying and their population is decreasing. One of the examples is an Indus River dolphin, which number has dramatically declined after building an irrigation construction. They needed to adjust to living in the lower and muddy part of the river where they can't see. Instead of using sight, they are navigating themselves by echolocation. Anyway, they are often stuck in dry parts of the river because they cannot turn back due to barrages and irrigation systems, so they are dying without being rescued. 6. Floods. Floods can damage properties, cause contamination and disease, but also lead to lives lost. Many factors can go into the making of the flood. There are weather events, like heavy or prolonged rains, storm surge, and then there are the human-driven elements, including how we manage our waterways, for example via dams. Also, climate change is noted as an influential factor on causing floods, for example, by rainfall or snowmelt. Our warming world may not induce flood directly, but it exacerbates many of the factors that do.
Okay, we already know that a lot of danger is around us, but we will not leave you with only bad information today. We are still trying to figure out what to do to fight with the obstacles in our lives all the time. That's why we prepared some innovation that help others and give hope for the future. First, what if we will create the fresh drinkable water from the air? Sounds like science fiction. Not necessarily. Navajo Nation, who lives in the part of Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico for a long time, was struggling with lack of accessible fresh water. In 2020, they made a first attempt to create hydro panels. How do exactly they work? They have fans that draw air in the atmosphere and push it through what's called a hygroscopic. From there, the trapped water vapor is extracted and gets condensed into liquid that's collected in the reservoir of the hydro panel. So that it has the ideal taste and composition that collect water is then mineralized. Now it can be run through the faucet and it's ready to drink. It can collect daily from 4 to 10 liters, while a battery itself can store around 60 liters of water. For now, it works for 15 households, but in the time, the idea will probably spread. Second, toilets. As we already know, the drinkable water is only about 1% of total amounts of water on the earth. Currently, toilet flushing accounts for about 30% of the world's domestic water demand, and using seawater could alleviate that pressure on freshwater resources. A novel salt-tolerant bacterium culture from the Red Sea effectively removes nitrogen from salty wastewater, and it could be used to treat sewage coming from toilets that use seawater for flushing in place of fresh water. It means that we have more water to drink. Third one, nets. Kwinana, a city of roughly 39,000 people from the Western Australia, attached nets to two large drainage pipes located in residential areas. They were installed to catch the litter before coming to the river. To their delight, the nets worked spectacularly. Over the course of 4 months, the nets managed to catch 3,070 kilograms of trash that would have otherwise ended up in the water. No animals have gotten trapped in the net since they were installed, and all of the bio-waste that ends up getting collected with the trash is taken to a recycling facility that turns to loose leaves and twigs into fertilizer. The nets cost Kwinana just under $20,000, which include the cost of design, manufacture, installation, and associated civil works. Since city workers were previously required to collect the rubbish scattered around the reserve by hand, the strategy was also proven to be surprisingly cost-effective. The idea started to get popular, and the inhabitants of Kwinana hoped that they will inspire other communities to do the same. Maybe we could use that too. So we mentioned some of the problems strictly connected with the water. A lot of these problems depend on the government and the water protection policy, but it doesn't mean that we cannot do anything about it. Here are a few things which we can implement in our lives to have a positive impact on environment. One of the easiest things we can do is to check our pipes and see if we have any leaks. If we have small leaks, we can waste around 70 liters of water daily only caused by that. How to check the pipes? Dry sinks and taps thoroughly and allow to sit for an hour. If you notice wetness, you found a leak. To find leaks from faucet handles, dry the area around them before running water. You'll see water collecting next to them if there is a leak. It's not only saving the water for the others, but also saving money. Second, another simple way to improve our lifestyle is to wash our clothes only when we have a full load of them in the washing machine. Use clothes washer for only full loads. With clothes washers, avoid the permanent press cycle. This is the one which helps with not leaving wrinkles on clothes. It uses more water, about 20 liters, for the extra rinse. For partial loads, adjust water levels to match the size of the load. Also, we can install lower dual flush models in our toilet. It is known that replacing the old toilet with the new one with a dual flush can cut our indoor use by 30%, which again saves a lot of water and money. Also, we need to save the water whenever you can. For example, while washing the dishes, rinse them in stopper sink or a pan of clean water instead of run the water. Before taking a bath, When you are waiting for a hot water, you can collect the cold one and store it in a bowl or in the bucket so later you can use it to flush the toilet or to water the plants in your home. Also, we need to buy less. To produce things we are buying, we use a lot of water. How many liters of water we need to use to produce coffee or a can of Coke? You can find out on our Instagram account GreenUp Brežice. Buying less of everything from clothing to electronic to household goods can dramatically decrease your water footprint.
So that's it from us, guys. I hope you're following us on Facebook and Instagram. We are called GreenUp Brežice. See you next time.